Hi there, I'm Jill Conrath, author of 4 best-selling books, and every year I speak at sales conferences and sales kickoff meetings, and the topic that I always focus on is understanding your customer better. It seems to me that that is the most overlooked area in terms of what salespeople need to understand to be effective at their jobs, but it is the most important area. So that's why I'm so excited that Discover.org is sponsoring this series where we actually get a chance to talk to real live people who are customers and who buy products and services to give us an inside look. And today we are joined by Heidi Bullock. She's the CMO at Engagio. So thanks for joining us, Heidi.
I find the best salespeople will help you identify that pain. And sometimes you might not even be aware that you have it, but good sales folks will say, look, I'm talking to some other marketing teams. They struggled with X. They've implemented this solution, and now it's so much easier for that team. And what I don't like is when salespeople are like, hey, you have time this week to meet. And you know the answer to that, I don't. I feel like I can barely go to the bathroom, let alone meet, just have random meetings.
So as you're making this decision and you're operating fast, what resources do you personally use to check out the results, the solution, the vendor? How do you think?
How do we evaluate? So I will be honest, I think it's an interesting combination of talking to your peers, because I think that, other marketers or other sales leaders will be honest. I am very honest with people, and I will always say, here's what I've experienced, and, maybe for your business it might be different, but this is what I see. So I talk to colleagues because I feel like it's unbiased and they're just going to be truthful, which is I appreciate. I feel like I read a lot. And I think I always find that, there's certain articles where you might learn pieces of technology that you might not have known about before. And also I would say events are big. So you can often find people that, and not every event, but I think there's really good events that you can kind of see how other companies are leveraging technology in unique ways. And I'd also lump webinars into that, because I think sometimes you'll see, things come out fast. So it might not be in time for an event, but somebody presents on a webinar. So I would say those things. And then in general, just again, because I'm in MarTech, I have people reaching out to me every day. So I'm pretty aware of technology and what's out there. I have Scott Brinker's MarTech landscape memorized, so that's good. I don't. To me, I feel like, in the era we live in now, it's easier to do it. I mean, I almost feel like there's different Slack groups that you can, I feel like I belong to a few really good Slack groups or other community groups where you can always pose a question. Even, something that comes up a lot is how to hire the right team for the size you are. There's a lot of, that's a big discussion. So I feel like in the world we're in now, you should always, to me, network with your peers, even LinkedIn. I just feel like posing questions there, people will give pretty honest, real-time answers. So it's, there's no reason not to. Right.
What can a salesperson do to capture your attention?
Yeah, I'll be really honest. I think the best salespeople I've worked with really have a sense of my day-to-day and the challenges that I face, and they just surface these challenges right away. Then it could be in the form of an email, it could be in the form of, I've had people do some really kind of clever videos or even send me direct tweets. I feel like even on LinkedIn, to me, it's less about the tactic or the vehicle to reach me. Right. It's more what they're saying. Okay. And when somebody says something that is apparent, they don't understand my day, or they don't understand the challenges I'm faced with, or they're like, hey, I'm wondering if you have an hour just to hear about XYZ. The answer is I don't. And that right there, you don't understand me. But I think there's people that are like, hey, I'm sure you're really stressed out about making sure that you hit your retention goals, or that pipeline that's, always growing. I have one quick thing you might want to be aware of. That's a great way to reach me. And I also think some really good salespeople have reached out to me at events, and they're just, they might say something funny, or they just, they ultimately try to build a relationship. So when the time's right, I'll think of them first. And good salespeople do that. I've had folks, at different events just come up, introduce themselves, and just say, hey, I want to, kind of have you recognize me. This is what we do. Maybe at some point it'll be right. And I think that's great. I'm all for meeting people and hearing what they have to say. But again, I think when somebody really understands your day-to-day and understands the pain points, the people that do that well, I'm happy to spend time with them.
And those people really, they have invested time getting to know people like you and other CMOs are thinking about. They know what your priorities are. They know what's happening at Engagio at this moment in time, growth trajectory. They know you.
That's right. Exactly. And doing a little of that research up front. And again, for me, I don't need something that's overly gimmicky. I think if somebody can, again, they understand what I'm struggling to get done and they can make a communication that's concise and to the point, that works for me.
Concise to the point. How about resources? Do you like it when they send you to interesting articles to read or things to download? Does that tempt you at all or not?
The reality is, like, I probably am not going to have time necessarily to look at a lot of that information. And again, if they're selling me a product or service in the MarTech space, chances are I know of it probably pretty well already. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to looking at something. I love when people insert, graphics right in their email, or they have a quick video. That's just easier to digest, because I think a lot of people with attachments, all of us have the best intentions and you're like, oh, I'll read it, but later, because typically you're running off to a meeting or something. And so I worry that that's not always consumed. I don't want to say that, I'm sure some people do. I typically, unless it's something I really care a lot about, I probably will not, look at an attachment for the most part.
Well, let's talk about that video. Is this the first time they send you a video the first time as a way of introducing themselves, what they're doing, or is it over time?
Yeah, I love that. I love it. It's something we've even experimented with at Engagio, and we've seen some great success with it where, like we're talking right now, I can see you, I have a real sense of your personality. I think you're a lovely person. Like, I'd rather buy from you than somebody else, that I feel like I have a sense of who you are. And so I think I'm a big fan of video. I mean, I would love to use it even more than we do, but I think it just creates kind of a sense that there's a relationship there. And I feel like I can learn more about a product or service in a few minutes of you telling me that versus having to read something.
Cool. Awesome.
That's my preference, but.
Yeah. And then what else can salespeople do to help you through your buying journey? I mean,
yeah. I think, again, the best salespeople, I think, really listen to what I'm asking for. And I like the pricing process to be easy and straightforward. I feel like we've all received agreements where, I don't want to spend 5 hours with an attorney trying to understand what the terms are. Like, that's not making it a smooth process for me. So I like when pricing is clear and straightforward. I like when you don't feel like there's surprises. There's nothing worse than getting everyone excited and then it's like, oh, by the way, now you have to pay this other, $8,000 fee for something. That isn't fun. Yeah, even if someone's like, yeah, most of our customers, they do a sandbox. That might take 2 weeks. I'm okay with that, but it's when you feel like there's a surprise that somebody doesn't tell you. That's not a good experience. Yeah. And I like salespeople that can tell a joke and are funny. I mean, we're all working really hard, and I just think when somebody has, they have a good sense of humor. I like that. I feel like salespeople have one of the toughest jobs there is. I feel like if you're in marketing and you've sold, like, you understand that perspective. I personally have a lot of respect for salespeople, so I always, really try to work with them in the best way possible. But I think, to me, the big message is just understand, and there's a lot of ways to get this information, what, a true pain point of the person you're selling to is.